Severa had never encountered anything like it before. The human ship, a massive metallic structure, was unlike anything she had seen in her life. From a distance, it looked like a flying fortress, smooth and sleek, with windows that glowed faintly like the stars themselves. She had been brought aboard with little ceremony, but the strange feeling in her gut was growing by the minute. The Verkelen, her species, were known for their intelligence and their ability to negotiate complex treaties. But they were also feared for their ruthless tactics. Her people understood power, and they took what they needed by force or by manipulation. The human species, though, was different. They were small in comparison to her, and their planet was nothing more than a speck in the vastness of the galaxy. Severa had been sent to assess the humans and perhaps strike a deal for mutual cooperation. She was careful, always on guard, her instincts telling her to expect the worst. As soon as the ship's hatch opened, she was greeted by a strange crew of humans, all with soft smiles and friendly eyes. Severa kept her distance, her antennae flicking in confusion. The captain, a woman with short, dark hair and sharp features, stepped forward first. Her name was Leela Carter, and she extended her hand in a gesture Severa had never seen before. "Welcome aboard, Ambassador Severa," Captain Carter said with a pleasant smile. "I'm glad to meet you." Severa narrowed her eyes at the human. Was this a trap? She knew her species' history. Humans were predators too, even if not in the same way. They were not known for their size or strength, but for their cunning, their ability to deceive, to survive by any means necessary. And Severa had been warned. She had been warned that humans would try to break her, to eat her in a way far worse than anything she could imagine. This was the price of diplomacy, she thought, being taken to the heart of their ship, where they would no doubt prepare her for their table. The crew led her through the ship, each step making her more uneasy. The smooth walls, the constant hum of the engines, the strange, almost calming atmosphere. It all felt wrong. Her mind raced as she tried to read the humans' body language, to see if they were hiding their true intentions behind their friendly smiles. They offered her food, small dishes with strange smells, grilled meat, colorful fruits, and soft bread. Severa recoiled at the sight. She had seen her own species feast in ways that would make a predator's stomach turn, and she was sure the humans were no different. But still, she remained quiet. It wasn't wise to reveal too much too soon. She wasn't there just to survive. She was there to negotiate. Her thoughts were interrupted by a voice. It was the same Captain Carter, calling out from across the room. "Would you like something to eat, Ambassador?" she asked, holding a plate filled with fruits Severa had never seen before. "We brought you some of our best." Severa's stomach twisted. This was it. This was the moment. She knew how the humans worked. They were experts at playing games, games where the prize was often their prey. The human hand was extended toward her, the soft smile on Carter's face never wavering. Severa could almost hear the cruel laughter in her mind as she realized what would come next. They would lure her into eating their food, filling her stomach, making her weak. Then they would strike. But Severa wasn't foolish. She had prepared for this moment. With a quick, decisive move, she backed away from the offering, her claws lightly touching the sides of her body in readiness. "I don't trust you," she said, her voice low and filled with suspicion. "I've heard of your species. You do not fool me." The crew's faces froze. For a moment, there was silence, the tension hanging in the air like an invisible storm cloud. But then Captain Carter chuckled softly, much to Severa's confusion. "I'm not sure what you've been told, Ambassador," she said, setting the plate of fruit down on a nearby table. "But I can assure you, we don't eat like that." Severa's antennae twitched. Was this some kind of trick? The humans were clearly not frightened of her, even when she displayed her aggression. The captain gestured for the others to step back, allowing Severa space to think. They had no weapons out, no sign of hostility, just these strange, curious faces watching her every move. As the moment stretched, Something shifted in the air, an unspoken understanding growing between them. Perhaps, Severa realized, she had misunderstood. Maybe, just maybe, these humans were not the monsters she had prepared herself for. But she wasn't about to lower her guard. She would remain cautious, watching, waiting. The humans might not have been predators in the way she thought, but they were certainly not harmless either. The days passed slowly aboard the human ship. Severa was not sure what to make of the strange creatures that now surrounded her. At first, the humans had been nothing but polite, perhaps too polite, in fact. They smiled at her with open expressions, as though they weren't the slightest bit afraid. Yet, despite their seemingly friendly gestures, Severa still could not shake the feeling that something was off. The humans showed her various parts of the ship, each room more puzzling than the last. The walls were smooth, the air warm and filled with a gentle hum. Their technology was advanced, but it wasn't intimidating, not like the cold, sharp weapons of her people. There were no signs of aggression in the way the humans moved. Everything was gentle, deliberate. But that didn't mean they were harmless. Severa couldn't help but be cautious. Her people had always taught her to trust only one thing, the instinct to survive. And right now, her instincts were telling her to watch her every move. One day, Captain Carter invited Severa to a meeting in the mess hall. As they walked through the ship's quiet hallways, the hum of the engine seemed almost peaceful. The captain led Severa to a large table filled with unfamiliar dishes. The smell was both inviting and strange, filling the air with scents that made Severa's stomach growl. "This is our food, Ambassador," Captain Carter said, gesturing to the spread on the table. "We thought you might enjoy some of our Earth delicacies." Severa eyed the dishes with suspicion. There were small, round bread rolls, colorful fruits, and grilled meats. The food looked soft and appealing. But Severa knew better than to be fooled by appearances. She had seen many species, even the kindest ones, use food as a way to manipulate. Could this be another trick? Perhaps this was how they intended to weaken her, to get her to trust them before revealing their true intentions. She would not fall for that. "No, thank you," Severa said, her voice firm as she stepped back from the table. "I am not hungry." Captain Carter frowned, a hint of confusion on her face. "Are you sure? It's some of our best. We wanted to share it with you as a gesture of goodwill." "I'm sure," Severa replied coldly, her antennae twitching. She took a deep breath, trying to control the unease rising in her chest. "I've been told that humans enjoy eating in strange ways." Carter raised an eyebrow, her face softening. "Strange ways?" she asked with a chuckle. "I assure you, Ambassador, we are not barbarians. We eat simply, like many species across the universe." Severa's gaze shifted to the food once more, her eyes narrowing. "But how do I know that? How do I know that this isn't part of some plan to lure me into a false sense of security? You want me to trust you, but I'm not sure if I can." The captain's smile faded, replaced with a serious expression. "We understand your caution. I can only tell you that we have no intention of hurting you. We only want peace and cooperation." Severa stood still for a long moment, considering the captain's words. Was this genuine? Could these humans really be as harmless as they appeared? She had been trained to see through lies, to sniff out deception before it could take root. But there was no obvious malice in Captain Carter's eyes. She could not sense any aggression in the way the humans behaved. Still, Severa couldn't allow herself to let down her guard. She had to be careful. "Fine," she said, her voice a little softer but still cautious. Perhaps I will observe for now." Captain Carter nodded, the smile returning to her face. "Of course, Ambassador, we understand. But if you change your mind, we are here." The humans turned back to their meal, continuing to eat without any sign of hostility. Severa remained at the edge of the room, watching them closely, her eyes darting from one human to the next. The way they sat, the way they spoke to each other, it was all so strange. So normal. For a moment, She began to question her own instincts. Were these humans truly as dangerous as she had been taught? She had heard stories of their violent history, how they had fought wars, colonized planets, and expanded their reach across the stars. But those were stories from long ago. Could it be that they had changed? Her thoughts were interrupted by a voice. "You know," said one of the humans, a tall man with short blonde hair, "we have a tradition on Earth. It's called sharing a meal together. It's about trust and friendship." Severa looked at him curiously, but said nothing. The man smiled warmly, as though he was inviting her to take part in something important, something sacred. For a brief moment, Severa hesitated. Could this be an invitation to relax, to break through the walls of mistrust she had built around herself? Or was it another game, another trap waiting to close around her when she least expected it? With a deep breath, Severa made a decision. She would remain vigilant. She would not allow herself to be swept away by false kindness. But she would also learn what these humans were really about. She had to know. As she turned and walked away from the table, she felt a strange sense of uncertainty. Something about the humans made her feel both uneasy and curious. The game had begun. The days aboard the human ship blended into one another, and yet Severa's uncertainty only deepened. She was caught between two worlds, one of her own, filled with instinct and suspicion, and the other, a world of strange smiles, warm gestures, and an unsettling sense of civility. She couldn't decide if she was being watched by the humans, as if she were an animal in a cage, or if, perhaps, the humans truly meant no harm. Severa's days were filled with discussions, although she rarely spoke much. She didn't trust the humans enough to reveal any real information about her species or her mission. She observed them quietly, watching their interactions with each other, trying to find something, anything, that would reveal their true nature. She was beginning to understand their language more, but it was still difficult to read their facial expressions. The humans seemed so open, so trusting. One afternoon, Captain Carter invited Severa to a meeting in the ship's observation deck. The room was large and round, with walls made entirely of glass that looked out into the deep blackness of space. The stars shone like diamonds, far away but ever present, just as the uncertainty within Severa remained. "We thought you might enjoy a change of scenery," Captain Carter said, gesturing for Severa to sit at one of the chairs near the window. Severa looked at the captain, her antennae flicking nervously. She had never trusted anyone this easily, yet there was something about Captain Carter that made her pause. The human's eyes held a curiosity that Severa could not read. Was this part of their tactic? She couldn't tell. She only knew one thing. She had to remain cautious. "I've been wondering something," Captain Carter said as she sat down opposite Severa. "You've been so quiet since you arrived. What's it like on your homeworld?" Severa hesitated. Her antennae drooped slightly, her mind racing. Should she answer? The humans were asking, but her species had always been secretive. Sharing information could be dangerous. Yet something inside her, the part of her that wanted to understand these creatures, urged her to speak. "It is different," Severa finally said, her voice soft, careful. "The Vorkallen are a people of strength, of survival. We do not trust easily. Our world is harsh. There are no simple pleasures like your food or your companionship." Captain Carter nodded slowly, as if considering Severa's words. "I can understand that. I suppose we're not so different in that way. We humans have had our fair share of struggles too. But over time, we've learned that trust can lead to something more valuable." Severa watched the captain, confused. Trust. Was that all they were talking about? Her people had survived through cunning and strength, never through trust. Trust was for the weak. It made one vulnerable. And Severa had never been vulnerable. "I don't know what you mean," Severa admitted. "My people do not trust. Trust makes us weak." Captain Carter smiled softly, a knowing look in her eyes. "I can see why you would think that. But you see, trust is not about weakness. It's about building a connection. When you trust someone, you give them the chance to show you their true self. Severa's antennae twitched. This was something entirely foreign to her. She had always been taught that trust was a liability, a potential opening for attack. Her thoughts flickered back to her time in the mess hall, to the food she had refused, the strange gestures of kindness from the humans. They had offered her trust, without asking for anything in return. Could this be real? What is it like to trust? Severa asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Captain Carter's eyes softened. It's not easy, but when you trust someone, you build a bond. And when you have a bond, you can face anything together. Severa was silent for a long time. Her mind struggled to grasp this concept. She had seen trust break people before, had seen the downfall of many who relied too much on it. But there was something about the way the captain spoke that made her pause. It was as if she had seen the benefits of trust firsthand. I don't know if I can trust you, Severa said, her voice quieter now. I don't know if I can trust anyone. Captain Carter's gaze didn't waver. I understand. But I hope that one day you'll see that it's not about letting down your guard completely. It's about letting someone show you that they are worthy of it. Severa shifted uncomfortably in her chair. There was something deeply unsettling about this conversation. She had never considered the possibility that trust could be earned. But here, in the presence of these humans, she was beginning to feel something else, something unexpected. She had heard stories of humans, of their wars and their conquests. But now, seeing them in person, she wondered, were they truly the monsters her people had warned her about, or had she misjudged them entirely? As the conversation came to an end, Severa left the observation deck with more questions than answers. The stars outside twinkled brightly, but they didn't seem as cold anymore. They seemed hopeful, but Severa wasn't ready to embrace that hope just yet. She had to keep her guard up. For now, she would continue to observe. There was still too much she didn't understand. Severa found herself spending more and more time aboard the human ship, though she still couldn't fully shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The humans were kind, yes, but kindness was not something she understood. It made her uneasy, and yet she couldn't ignore the small pull of curiosity that had begun to grow inside her. Despite her reservations, she agreed to spend more time with them, under one condition. They would never lower their guard completely. Captain Carter had noticed this change in Severa, and one day she proposed something unusual. Ambassador Severa, Captain Carter began, we've noticed you have a sharp mind. Why not join us for a game? It's called chess. It's a game of strategy, and we think you'd enjoy it. Severa's antennae flicked upward, intrigued but skeptical. She had seen humans play strange games before, and while she wasn't particularly fond of such distractions, there was something about chess that felt different. It wasn't just a game of chance. It required careful thought, planning, and precision. It was like a battle, one that Severa could understand. I accept your challenge, Severa said, her voice steady, but with a slight edge of curiosity. She knew that a game like this would allow her to test her skills, but more importantly, it would give her an opportunity to observe the humans more closely. This could be the perfect opportunity to uncover something they were hiding. They set up the chessboard in a quiet corner of the ship's mess hall, the pieces carefully arranged in neat rows. The humans explained the rules, but Severa already understood the basics of the game. Strategy, calculation, and cunning were all essential. It was a perfect test for her, a way to see if the humans truly were as clever as they claimed to be. As the game began, Severa wasted no time making her first moves. She pushed her pieces forward with precision, testing the captain's responses. Carter, for her part, was calm and measured. She didn't rush her moves, instead considering each one carefully before acting. Severa found herself impressed, but she didn't show it. She wasn't here to make friends. She was here to win, to prove that she was the superior strategist. The game went on for a long while, the quiet hum of the ship the only sound that filled the air. Tavera's mind raced with possibilities, each move a step toward gaining the upper hand. She had studied the humans' movements carefully, observing their patterns in other areas. Now she could use that knowledge against them. The captain, however, seemed to know just how to counter her strategies. They exchanged glances, neither speaking, both focused entirely on the board. Tavera moved a knight forward, setting a trap. The captain's eyes flickered, but she didn't take the bait. Instead, she moved a pawn into place, subtly shifting the balance of the game. Tavera's antennae twitched in frustration. This human was clever. Too clever. Tavera had expected to dominate. She had expected to find an easy way to win, to prove her superiority. But here, on this chessboard, the humans were equal to her. They played with the same precision, the same sharpness of mind. It was a challenge, one that Tavera had not anticipated. As the game continued, Tavera found herself growing more engaged. The thrill of the battle, the push and pull of strategy, had a way of drawing her in. She began to appreciate the challenge, and for the first time, she allowed herself to feel a sense of respect for the humans. This game wasn't about winning anymore. It was about understanding them, about learning how they thought, how they calculated each move. But Tavera wasn't one to back down easily. She pushed forward with renewed determination, each move a reflection of her will to succeed. The game was far from over. Eventually, the pieces on the board dwindled down to just a few. Tavera had made several brilliant moves, and now, with only one final push, she could claim victory. She was about to make her move when the captain looked up at her with a small, knowing smile. "Checkmate," Captain Carter said calmly, her voice smooth but with a hint of amusement. Tavera blinked, stunned. She had been so focused on her own strategy that she hadn't seen the captain's final move coming. The game was over. The humans had won. For a long moment, there was silence. Tavera stared at the board, her mind racing. She had lost, and for some reason, that stung more than she had expected. She had underestimated the humans. She had thought them to be simple, easy to outsmart. But they were nothing like what she had imagined. They were clever, strategic, and just as capable of winning as anyone from her species. Captain Carter leaned back in her chair, her smile growing slightly. "I have to admit, Ambassador, you're quite the strategist. But there's more to a game than just moves and counter-moves. Sometimes it's about seeing the bigger picture." Tavera's antennae twitched in surprise. The words lingered in the air. It wasn't just about the game, she realized. It was about something deeper, something she still didn't fully understand. "Well played," Tavera said, her voice steady, though her mind was still processing the loss. Captain Carter's smile widened, and she nodded. "Thank you, Ambassador. Maybe next time, you'll be the one teaching us." Tavera wasn't sure how to respond. She had lost, but something inside her had shifted. This game, this challenge, had revealed more than just the captain's strategic abilities. It had revealed a side of the humans that she hadn't expected, one that was intelligent, sharp, and capable of earning her respect. And for the first time since she had arrived on the human ship, Tavera began to wonder if she had misjudged them. The days aboard the human ship continued to unfold, each one filled with more questions than answers. Tavera found herself caught between two worlds, the world of her people, who would never trust the humans, and the world of the humans, who seemed to have no desire for conflict. They had shown her their kindness, their intelligence, and their patience. But deep down, Tavera could not let go of her suspicion. She had come from a culture where trust was a luxury no one could afford, and as much as she tried to push her doubts aside, they remained, lurking in the back of her mind. It was late one evening when the atmosphere aboard the ship shifted. The ship's usual hum was interrupted by a sudden series of loud beeps and flashing lights. Tavera stood in the hallway, her antennae twitching as she felt the vibrations underfoot. She knew that sound well. It was the alert system. "Ambassador Tavera," Captain Carter's voice crackled through the intercom. "Please report to the bridge immediately. We've detected an unknown object approaching." Severa's heart skipped a beat. Unknown object. She moved swiftly toward the bridge, her instincts alert, her mind racing. This wasn't something the humans had warned her about. What was happening? Were they being attacked? Or was this some kind of test? She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When Severa arrived at the bridge, the humans were already gathered around a control panel, staring at a holographic display. The object in question was a small, distant shape, barely visible against the backdrop of space. It was moving at an alarming speed, and the humans seemed tense. Captain Carter stood at the front, her expression focused but calm. "What is it?" Severa asked, her voice low and measured. "We're not sure," Captain Carter replied, her eyes fixed on the screen. "It came out of nowhere. We've tried to scan it, but the readings are inconsistent. It doesn't match any known ships or objects." Severa moved closer to the display, her sharp eyes scanning the unknown shape. It was small, no larger than a transport ship, but its speed was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was too fast, too erratic. Whoever, or whatever, was piloting it had skills far beyond what Severa was accustomed to. "This is strange," she muttered, more to herself than to the captain. Her antennae flicked nervously as she analyzed the situation. If it is not a human ship, then who is it? Captain Carter glanced at her, her face grim. "We don't know, but we have to be ready for anything." Severa stood still for a moment, considering the implications. Her instincts screamed that this was no accident. Whoever was coming for them had a reason, and given the fact that it was an unknown object, Severa could not dismiss the possibility that this was an ambush, a trap laid out by someone who knew the human's location. "Prepare for a possible attack," Severa said, her voice calm but firm. She wasn't sure if the humans would take her seriously, but her people had faced too many ambushes to not act with caution. The crew immediately went into action, moving quickly to man the ship's defenses. Severa's sharp eyes watched every movement, every detail. The humans were organized, but there was something about their actions that felt too relaxed. They were confident, yes, but they didn't seem to understand the gravity of the situation. Severa couldn't afford to be so careless. She had learned long ago that any unknown threat was dangerous until proven otherwise. Captain Carter turned to her. "You said we should prepare for an attack. How do we do that?" Severa's eyes narrowed. "You don't wait for it to come to you. You need to make the first move. A surprise strike might catch them off guard." The captain's eyes softened for a moment. "I understand. We'll follow your advice." For the next few hours, the crew worked in a tense silence. Severa's mind raced as she reviewed every possibility. The unknown object was still approaching, its course unpredictable, making it difficult to track. Every now and then, it would disappear from their sensors only to reappear moments later, as if mocking their efforts to understand it. Whoever or whatever was behind this, they were good, too good. Finally, the object grew closer and the tension in the room heightened. Severa's antennae twitched as she stared at the holographic display, willing herself to stay focused. This was it. Whatever was about to happen, she would face it head-on. There would be no running, no second chances. Just as the object was within striking distance, it suddenly shifted direction, veering off to the side with blinding speed. The humans reacted instantly, trying to reposition their defenses, but the object was already gone, disappearing into the vastness of space with such speed that it was impossible to follow. "What was that?" Captain Carter whispered, her voice laced with disbelief. Severa's eyes remained fixed on the empty space where the object had been moments before. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had never seen anything like it. The object had been deliberately evasive, almost as though it knew exactly how to avoid detection. It wasn't an attack, Severa said, her voice tight. But it wasn't random either. Someone is watching us. The realization hit Severa like a shockwave. Whoever had sent that object was not here to fight. They were here to observe, to test. The humans were being watched, and Severa could feel it in the air. They were not as safe as they thought. The mysterious object had vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the crew of the human ship in a tense silence. The stars outside the ship seemed distant and uncaring, their cold light doing little to ease the anxiety that now hung in the air. Severa's antennae twitched nervously as she paced the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the empty space where the object had been moments before. "We need to prepare," Severa said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. This was no random encounter. Whoever sent that object is watching us. Captain Carter stood beside her, her expression unreadable. But why? What do they want from us? Severa's thoughts raced, but the answer seemed just out of reach. It wasn't just the technology of the object that troubled her. It was the deliberate nature of its movements. It wasn't a simple reconnaissance mission. No, this was something more complex. Whoever was behind it had a plan, and Severa couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were part of it. They were being tested, but by who? "I don't know," Severa admitted, her voice tight with frustration. "But I know one thing. They won't stop. Not until they get what they're after." Captain Carter glanced at the rest of the crew, who were now busily monitoring their systems. There was a palpable sense of unease among them, but no one spoke. They were all waiting for the next move, and they all knew that whatever came next would decide the fate of the ship. "We'll keep our defenses up," Captain Carter said, her tone resolute. "But we can't sit here forever. We need to make contact, find out who is behind this, and why they're targeting us." Severa shook her head. "You can't just ask them. Whoever they are, they'll never show themselves willingly. You'll have to draw them out. Force them to reveal their hand." Captain Carter studied her for a moment, as if weighing her words. "And how do you suggest we do that?" Severa's eyes narrowed. "I've seen your weapons systems. They're powerful, but you lack the element of surprise. You'll need to be unpredictable. Lure them into a trap." For a moment, the room fell silent. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but Captain Carter nodded. "All right, let's do it your way." The next few hours were filled with tension and careful planning. Severa worked alongside the crew, providing her input on how they could use the ship's systems to their advantage. The humans had technology that was advanced, but not as advanced as what they were up against. Still, with her knowledge of tactics and her sharp mind, Severa helped them design a plan to draw the mysterious ship back into their sights. They would use the ship's subspace communication systems to broadcast a false signal, one that would appear to be a distress call. It would lure the unknown ship into a trap, and once it arrived, the humans could disable it long enough to figure out who was behind it. Severa had no doubt that whoever was watching them would take the bait. It was a dangerous gamble, but it was the only option they had. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. The ship's systems were adjusted, the false signal sent out, and the trap was set. Severa stood near the control panel, her eyes darting between the various readouts. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. If they failed, the ship and everyone aboard it would be in grave danger. "Are you sure about this?" Captain Carter asked, her voice steady but laced with concern. Severa nodded, her expression hardening. "We don't have a choice. They're waiting for us to make a mistake. We have to outsmart them before they outsmart us." The crew members worked swiftly, adjusting their positions and preparing the ship for whatever would come next. Severa's heart raced in her chest, but she refused to show any fear. She had faced countless dangers in her life, but this was different. The unknown ship was a threat unlike any she had encountered before. But Severa wasn't afraid of danger. She was afraid of what they didn't know. Time passed slowly as the crew waited for the mysterious ship to respond. The minutes stretched into hours, and still there was no sign of movement from the depths of space. Severa's antennae twitched nervously as she glanced at the screens, trying to suppress the growing unease in her chest. Then, without warning, the ship's sensors blared to life. The object had returned. "It's coming back," one of the crew members shouted. Severa's mind went into overdrive as she watched the object approach once more. This time, it didn't seem to be moving with the same erratic speed. It was methodical, as if it was studying the ship's movements, learning its patterns. "We've got them," Severa said, her voice low but filled with determination. "Prepare the defenses. This is our chance." Captain Carter nodded, and the crew sprang into action. The ship's weapon systems powered up, and Severa could feel the tension in the air. The trap had been set. And now, all they had to do was wait. The unknown ship drew closer, its sleek form becoming clearer against the backdrop of the stars. It was fast, but it was no match for the humans' carefully laid plans. As the ship moved into range, Severa gave the signal. "Fire." The ship's weapons flared to life, sending a barrage of energy toward the unknown object. But instead of dodging or retreating, the object did something unexpected. It sent out a powerful shockwave, disabling the ship's weapons in an instant. Severa's eyes widened in disbelief. The ship had anticipated their every move. Whoever was behind this wasn't just watching. They were controlling the situation. "We're in trouble," Severa muttered, her heart pounding in her chest. This wasn't part of the plan. The shockwave from the mysterious ship had left the human vessel vulnerable. The crew scrambled to regain control, but the damage was done. Severa could feel the weight of the situation settling over her, as if the very air around her had thickened. The mysterious ship had outplayed them, and now they were trapped. Captain Carter slammed her fist against the control panel. "Damn it. How did they do that?" Severa remained calm, her antenna flicking as she scanned the situation. She could feel the pressure mounting, but she refused to show any signs of panic. The humans had underestimated their enemy, but it wasn't too late. There was still a chance, if they acted quickly enough. "They knew exactly what we were going to do," Severa said, her voice steady. "This wasn't just an attack. They've been monitoring us, learning our every move. They are one step ahead." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their faces reflecting the same fear that Severa had been trying to suppress. She knew that time was running out. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. If the mysterious ship attacked again, there would be nothing left to defend. "We have to fight back," Severa said firmly. "We need to think outside the box. This ship, whoever is piloting it, has been playing with us. But we've still got one thing they don't." "What's that?" Captain Carter asked, her voice tight. Severa turned to face her, her expression resolute. "We have the element of surprise. They think we're weak, that we've been outwitted, but they're wrong. If we can catch them off guard, we might still have a chance." Captain Carter's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, it seemed as though she was about to protest. But then, slowly, she nodded. "All right. What do we do?" Severa's mind raced, her thoughts spinning as she analyzed every possible option. The mysterious ship was fast, powerful, and had already proven its ability to disable their defenses. But Severa had seen something in the way it moved, something that suggested it wasn't invincible. It was clever, yes, but overconfident. "Their weakness is their predictability," Severa said. "They've been studying us, learning our tactics. But what they don't know is that we're capable of adapting too. We can turn the tables." Captain Carter's gaze was fixed on her, and the tension in the room seemed to dissipate slightly. "How?" "We'll do the opposite of what they expect," Severa said, her voice confident. "We'll feign retreat, let them think we're giving up. When they move in to finish us off, we'll strike." For a moment, there was silence. The crew looked to Captain Carter, waiting for her response. Finally, she took a deep breath and nodded. "All right, let's do it." The crew immediately sprang into action, adjusting the ship's systems to make it appear as if they were retreating in defeat. The ship's engines powered down, and its course shifted, slowly drifting away from the position where the mysterious ship had struck. Stivera's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the sensors, waiting for the inevitable. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. The ship's sensors showed the enemy vessel growing closer, its movements cautious but deliberate. Stivera could feel the tension building again. This was it, the moment of truth. Then, just as the enemy ship was within striking distance, Stivera gave the signal. Now, the human ship's engines flared back to life, and it shot forward with surprising speed. The sudden burst of movement caught the enemy ship off guard, just as Stivera had predicted. The mysterious ship wasn't ready for the change in tactics, and it hesitated just for a split second. That was all the time they needed. The human ship's weapon systems, now fully powered, came back online. Energy blasts shot out, striking the enemy ship with pinpoint accuracy. The force of the impact rocked the mysterious vessel, but it didn't break apart. It was still there, still fighting. Stivera's antennae twitched. She knew this wasn't over yet. "We need to disable their engines," she said urgently. "Aim for the propulsion system." The crew quickly adjusted their aim, targeting the heart of the enemy ship's engines. Another barrage of energy blasts hit their mark. And this time, the mysterious ship faltered. Its speed slowed, and the once erratic movements became more predictable. "We've got them," one of the crew members shouted. But Stivera wasn't ready to celebrate yet. The mysterious ship was still too dangerous, still too unpredictable. They had damaged it, but they hadn't won yet. Stivera turned to Captain Carter, her voice firm. "This isn't a victory yet. We need to board them. Find out who's behind this before they can escape." Captain Carter nodded without hesitation. "Prepare for a boarding operation. Everyone, get ready." The crew moved with precision, preparing the necessary equipment for the boarding. Stivera stood by, her mind racing. This was it, the final move. Whoever was on that ship had been playing a dangerous game, and now they would find out exactly what they were up against. As the human ship drew closer to the damaged vessel, Stivera's heart raced. The doors to the airlock opened, and the crew stepped into the unknown, their weapons ready. Stivera led the way, her sharp senses alert for any sign of danger. The moment they stepped aboard the enemy ship, they were greeted by silence. The lights flickered, and the hum of the engines had stopped. But there was no sign of life, no sign of anyone who could explain what had just happened. Stivera's antennae twitched as she looked around. Something didn't feel right. Then, out of the shadows, a figure stepped forward. It was humanoid, but different, its skin a strange shade of silver, its eyes glowing faintly. The figure raised a hand in a gesture of peace, but Stivera didn't lower her guard. "Welcome, Ambassador Stivera," the figure said, its voice calm but chilling. "We've been waiting for you."